You know?
Fuck yeah.
No, honestly, probably because I mean, I'm so used to. I haven't worn a Pro 5 in a long time, Pro Club. So I'm all like, damn, okay, this went all out. Like, he knows, you know? I got excited there.
I really like it, dog.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about it where, I mean, you know how it is, man. Like, the roots.
It is. It's like the OG hood roots. It took me back to middle school. I kid you not. Like, in middle school, I remember when I was like a little kid and I first started getting them, I got excited because like they'd be like super fitted, you know? And the neck would fit like super crispy, so whenever like you go out to the other quinceañeras and shit, the white tee would come out like super crispy instead of like that little raggedy, limpy ass shirt. Yeah,
for sure.
I feel you. No, it's just clean.
Ladies and gentlemen, I got a good friend here today, Juan Moctezuma. He does a lot of shit. He's got his own business, man. And he's really just like making as many moves as possible. And you know, we're gonna get to talk about as many things as we feel like talking about today.
Yeah, as much
as I'm excited for you making the trip and spending time, man, and coming out here, man, because you know, nobody's paying you, right? You're doing it out of goodwill, man.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful, I'm thankful, and yeah, man, how you doing?
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. I mean, I feel good, you know? Like, I feel like it was about time, you know, because for a minute you had asked me something like, all right, you know, let me get something together, you know, kind of just have some kind of message. But I was like, you know what? No, you know? The more I started seeing your other podcasts with other people, and I was like, it's very natural, you know? It's very, like, super chill, kicking it, you know? So that relieved a lot of my stress. So I was just like, oh, I'm happy to be on, you know? So it's a compliment to me because, you know, I feel like a lot of people grind and not a lot of people notice or they'll see, but like once you start seeing other people that do it too, you're like, yo, this guy's doing something too, you know? So you kind of just like support each other, like, you know? Gotta support Drippy tea, get you one, super cozy.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And I love that, you know, when I have conversations with people that are watching the show, you know, they're able to find that commonality, you know, that common ground. And it's like, it's people that are hustling, man. It's a different hustle, right? Like you got your hustle, you know, the coffee homie has another hustle, and everyone has their lane. I got the artists that are doing their rap and they're doing their hip hop, and it's really exactly what I want it to be, bro.
Yeah.
Where if somebody listens and they happen to get like some type of information that guides them through this path where endless possibilities can be.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I can't say that anyone in particular in my family raised me to be that way, but whatever happened in my life, there were certain energies and phenomena that put that in my brain.
Yeah. I can actually remember, I can remember those couple moments and stuff, because I mean, just how you're mentioning right now, you start getting surrounded by a lot of people that have the mentality more than anything. And that mentality just branches out to their very specific, you know, field that they're into. So once you start kind of getting to know people, you start getting inspired by so many others just by their way of being, you know? It becomes part of like, I mean, ever since Kobe passed, RIP, you know? Like, it's the Mamba mentality. And it just gets ingrained in you. And then you start seeing it in others and you get inspired, and it's just a beautiful thing, you know? So for me, growing up, it was just like seeing my pops hustle, where it's like, damn, this one's got some hustle, you know? And you start picking from it. And unconsciously, like, it just becomes you, you know? You start seeing things in different forms, and how can that be better, and how can I, you know, be better than the next guy type thing, you know? And at the same time, support other people, you know? Because once you get to a certain level, there's a sense of kind of feeling alone. But at the same time, there's so many others around you that can be inspiring, you know? So it's like, I'm actually grateful that you have me here, because I've been seeing your podcast and I've been seeing the people that you have on, and it's inspiring altogether, you know? Like, there's a lot of people doing a lot of beautiful, awesome things, and it's just all about the mentality, you know? So I'm all for it, you know? I like talking to you, you know, just shooting ideas back and forth, you know, because it's the mentality that we got, you know.
And we've had a couple times where we've just like been on these like binge conversations,
like rabbit holes after rabbit holes.
And it's like, yo, man, like you really need to do that as much as possible because stimulation, like positive stimulation for your heart, your mind, your soul, all that shit is 100% necessary in order to continue to evolve as a human being.
Definitely.
But right now you were talking, like, one of my thoughts that came earlier, because you were talking about, like, yeah, like that hustle motivating idea that's infectious.
Yeah.
I was like, well, how did you, or do you remember, the moment that really struck you to kind of start kind of heading that there in the direction you brought up your pops?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really cool how you brought up the idea of like subconsciously or unconsciously really picking up that factor in it, ultimately making who you are.
Definitely. I feel like, as far as myself, growing up, I was able to pick my mentors based off you just start seeing the cool things, the cool little aspects that they have that like attract you to wanting to be that way. And then as you start growing up, I feel like you start developing yourself based off all those little aspects that you picked up from all those people throughout your life.
So what was it about your pops' daily actions that you liked and that you gravitated towards, and that ultimately were those little gems that fueled your desire to just be a hustler?
He's just like a really like innovative guy. Like he was the one that taught me how to weld and work with materials and stuff like that, and just think differently. He just thinks really outside of the box and like find solutions for everything. That's essentially what it was. If there's a problem, there's always a solution. Sometimes you got to step back and come through it in a different situation. As far as up until now, as far as owning a business, being a businessman, you're trying to solve someone's problems so they could transact you with money. So having that mentality of being a problem solver applies to every single moment in your life where you're encountered by this situation and you have to figure out the solution. So you're already in that mindset where it's like, how can I, defeat this situation that I have in front of me that's really challenging? Or how do I get to the next level and what's in front of me that I need to overcome? So that mindset altogether just is very infectious. And honestly, it's helped me out a lot throughout life, Found myself in like very like difficult situations. You have to like sit down, analyze your options and see what's going to get you forward, So I feel like that's one of the key things about myself now that I've absorbed from a kid, just being a problem solver.
That's fucking sick, bro.
Yeah.
Like, literally, because when I think about, like, I can almost, to just simplify my thought right now, there's different types of people, and I just want to put two people in two different camps. There's the people who fixate on problems, but don't have a solution. And then there's people who look at the problem, but then have a solution.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the only solution, nor the best solution.
Yeah.
But the fact that you are focused on looking at the solution and being like, yo, this shit's fucked up, but I got an idea to make it better.
Exactly. And then to go from there, you have to act on it, which is essentially another aspect that's very difficult for some people, like, because everyone has ideas, but acting on it in a positive way, that also becomes something,
Yeah.
Like, it becomes, I would want to say that they're almost separate of an idea from, finding the solution, or at least thinking as a problem solver, but actually executing. Because sometimes you might not be someone who has a lot of these, solutions, but in that one moment you're like, that would be really cool, and then you just act on it. You just gotta do it. That's the only differentiating thing. The doers and the ones that don't. So I feel like there are two different things that have to collide together. You gotta be a thinker and a doer.
And then there's the people who are just thinkers and they just think, and then there's the people who just do.
Yeah.
Which it's like, yo, the perfect situation was where you merge both, right? Because you plan it out, you think through it thoroughly, and then you gotta step out there.
Yep.
You gotta step out there and you gotta give it a shot and you gotta fail time after time after time, and then you're like, ooh, like I realized that this way didn't work, and this way didn't work, and this way didn't work, and then eventually you end up finding like your own little. Sometimes I love finding like my own unique solution. It's like, I don't know if you remember being in high school and you had like a math problem and like there was a formula, and then you're like, fuck, I don't understand the formula, but I found the right answer.
And it made sense in your mind.
Yeah.
You got the answer. Yeah.
And that's what life is like sometimes, for people who are a little bit more creative, or people who are a little bit more like outside of the box type thinkers.
Exactly.
And it's a true valuable skill that you develop over time. And sometimes when I think about schooling, contemporary education, it's tragic. It's very, very tragic, because as educators, as teachers, we've designed these like rubrics. And look, I understand that to some degree having a rubric is very important.
Yeah.
Because if you have a rubric, it gives people structure. It gives people like a pathway to be successful.
More or less. I feel like you had touched on it a little earlier, where you had brought up failure. That's a very, very key issue. I feel a lot of people, especially in school, because I could say for myself, a lot of my challenges was dealing with failure in school. Sometimes there was a subject that I wasn't that good at, and I would study as much as I could, but I just couldn't understand the concept, or just like you were saying, maybe I had a different solution to it, and the aspect of the way that it's supposed to be done, that's how it's supposed to be done, and the way you did it is wrong. It kind of takes a hit to you personally. So I feel like, accepting failure too is also like a big aspect to a lot of students, or just anyone, anyone going through the process,
Right, and that's the thing, is that this system, it doesn't reward failure, because it gives you a pathway, so you blindly follow that pathway knowing that you're gonna be successful. But as soon as you're out of that, you fail, because you don't have a plan anymore. You don't have someone telling you what to do, so you're kind of out there on your own, and of course you will learn through trial and error.
Yeah.
But what happens is that some people do not build the self-resiliency to fail and then say it's all good. It's
okay to fail. I learned my lesson the first time, and now I'm gonna go over, do it again, and improve on myself. And yeah, you bring up excellent point. Like, allowing yourself to fail it's a part of the process. You have to deal with it, and I feel like when you bring up like a school structure like that, it's very one-sided. If you fail, that let it go. We're still moving on to the next subject. Right. In real life, if you fail, you're learning the answers. It's kind of like when you take a test and the next day you review, and then you find out the answers and it makes sense.
Right.
That's kind of more of real life, but without the pressure behind it. I mean, there might be some kind of pressure, but the way I've learned to take it is, it's you have the right idea, you just need to tinker it a little bit. How can you win the next time around? So for me, that's one of the key things. Failure. Learn to accept it, learn to grow, and move forward.
What's a failure that you've really been able to grow from, where it's like put you more into your zone as a man, as a grown man? Like, what's a failure that's really helped you mature as a man?
Damn. All right. The most prominent one right now that comes to mind is I was living in San Francisco, and I was out there for a good while. I already had a job, I had a place to stay at, and everything was cool, right? But in my mind, the plan was still kind of fuzzy based off my surroundings. Either, work wasn't all that great, so I didn't have a sense of job security because of the way I was feeling. There was nothing wrong with my job, I just didn't feel comfortable, so I didn't feel like I was gonna be there for very long. So I'm like, I need to get out of here. I need to branch out. And where I was living, there was a whole bunch of us living in a house. We were like 7 people living in a 3-bedroom house in San Francisco. So the situation was like, you have to room with someone. And yeah, I have a roof over my head, but I'm not in the most comfortable situation, But at the same time, overseeing everything, I was living in the city that I wanted to be in for a very long time. And I had planned it strategically to be there, and then one day I'm sitting there and I'm all like, I'm finally here, I did it, like I achieved my goal, but I'm not happy. You know, I'm not, it wasn't what I thought it would be. So I ended up moving back to LA, but with the intention to start a business. So I was like, all right, this is gonna be my opportunity. Like, my mentor's always been there. All my tools, everything that I've already started has been there. I just kind of left for the sake of personal growth, is how I saw it. So once I was there, I hit that moment where I was like, you know what? My real happiness is back home, and the plan is still back over there, but I don't want to leave here. You know, so I felt like having to accept that that place wasn't for me and I had to come over here to actually like achieve my goals. That was a big turning point where it's like, you know what, you might have the wildest dreams, but sometimes that doesn't correlate with everything going on in your life, you know. So you have to make that switch and accept it and own it, you know, make it part of who you are now. You know, you're not coming back the same person, you're coming back a different person with a completely different mentality. So I felt like that was the learning curve for me, and just, you know, spending some time to like revise the plan. You know, like what am I gonna do? Like, there will be some days that are slower than others, but you have to remind yourself that this is the end goal. So there's no reason to like bring yourself down over it. You know, sometimes another opportunity might present itself and you have to reevaluate everything and either take the decision or not to go whichever direction. So I feel like as a man now, I need to improvise as things come, but at the same time have the end goal in mind, where, you know, failure happens. You just have to reevaluate that, and if you want to go towards the same thing, go ahead and do it, the better plan, or maybe there's just a better option where you gotta like completely scratch it off, a new game plan, but the goal is up there, you know.
Yeah, so what would you say was the primary thing that changed within that time frame?
Within that time frame, things that changed, man, is I mean, obviously where I was living.
Yeah, but like, I mean, like more like in your mind, like what switches went off, what switches turned on, you know, mentally.
The main switches that turned on were that I have the ability to make whatever goal I have possible. I have the ability to do it, no question about it. Like, it can be done if you put in the work, you do the sacrifice, whatever it might be. But at the same time, the thing that turned it off was just those obstacles of that goal that you had wasn't really what was going to make you happy. I didn't anticipate not feeling happy at the end of my goal. You know what I mean? So having to go through that discomfort of, you know, it was nice and I did it, but it's not it. You just got to like suck it up and accept that. One, you did it, pat yourself on the back, but at the same time, if it really wasn't for you, what's the next goal? What's the better goal, you know?
Yeah, so it seems like overall your vision became more clear for the outcome.
Yeah.
And in a sense, that is a little of what it is to be more grown in the way that you walk. Because I can relate as well to being younger and just kind of generalizing what I wanted.
Yep.
And just kind of like the dream was just so much bigger, and not in the sense of impact, but the dream was just, it wasn't necessarily perfectly crafted.
It wasn't perfectly crafted.
You see what I'm saying? It's like I couldn't sit down and say, yeah, the A will lead to B and B will lead to C, and therefore eventually I will get to Z. Now it's like, okay, like for example, you know, earlier you heard me on the phone call when I was talking to my friend SGN. You know, we're very close to dropping our book.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he had connected with a professor from MIT that we're asking to drop a review on our book. That way, when we print our book, you see the end of a book, there's always praises and reviews and things of the nature, sometimes by the LA Times and whatnot, but we're not there. You know, so we're looking to people that we respect.
Definitely.
Because not only do I know that we respect them, but I know that they value us.
Yeah, and it's credibility too. You know, it's a level of credibility all around.
Right. Overall, I'm gonna keep it real with you. I don't give a fuck about credibility. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, like, there could be some random ass fool somewhere in South Central that's got some badass ideas, maybe even better than a USC professor. And so the fact that, you know, we're basing ourselves based off of these credentials,
yeah,
it's like, we've already lost the fight. And
no, you're right.
Like, one thing that I love that Malcolm X has said, he said, my credentials, the only credentials I got are my sincerity. And it's like, yeah, man, like, I don't care about the name so much as I care about the way that you feel about
the honest opinion about it.
Yes. But essentially, the reason why I was saying that is because we planned that shit out. We planned it out. We sat together many times, many meetings, and we decided, okay, we're gonna write about this, we're gonna structure it like this, this is what we're gonna do. So I don't know where the book is gonna take us.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But the point is that, you know, you had a business idea and you executed. And you made it happen.
Yeah.
And right now we're really close to making that happen versus maybe when I was 21, 22, there's no way in hell I could have written a book. Because
you didn't think about it.
I was too scatterminded. You know?
Yeah.
And that's another thing, bro, is like focus. Focus is something that I don't think it's a common thing in our society anymore because we have way too many distractions.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? Whether it be whatever, dog. I don't even have to bring up the way that we get sidetracked because it's there, it's everywhere, and constantly, even my cell phone. You know, like in the situations where I was writing my book, and I like to take my little breaks.
I was gonna ask you that too. I was like, how'd you deal with like actually sitting down and like going through writing it in processes, or how they come to you? You know, because distraction is a big aspect too. You know, like you could have the ideas, but they're very scattered most of the time, you know, and it's very difficult because I go through this myself. I give myself periods of time to sit down and plan it out until it makes sense. And then, you know, give it time, revise it in a couple months, and then make sure it makes sense. But I do get distracted, you know?
Yeah.
So for yourself, having to write a book and there having to be a format, obviously you're having a lot of meetings, you know, like what were some of your challenges going through that, like building that structure?
First of all, I think, you know, Angel and I, we have really good chemistry, like almost like a natural intellectual chemistry. So it was never really so much difficulty in kind of coming to agree with what we want to share, because like he respects me intellectually and I definitely respect him intellectually. And so when you sit down, it's like, yo, look, I got these ideas. All right, you got these ideas, and we would just hash them out. Where like, okay, when you think about an idea, it sounds fucking great.
Yeah.
But when you actually say it and express it, like the way people react to it will be, oh, that shit was kind of lame.
Yeah, it was kind of like, let me switch it up.
Yeah. So as we were sharing, we were able to naturally be like, okay, nah, you know what, not that one. Because when we first started, we were just writing, food. Like when we just writing. So I have great pieces of writing that they're not even in the book. They're not even in the book, which is cool because, you know, later on in the future, if I want to do my own book or whatever, like I still have those pieces of writings or create like writing blogs that I could, you know, post out there, because, you know, my style of writing is always very, very relatable. You know, like I'm not an academic by any stretch of the imagination. And if I did try to write like an academic, I probably would just sound stupid. Yeah. You know? Or, you know, maybe it depends on the person reading it. Some people might be like, oh, damn, this was kind of smart. Or somebody else would be like, nah, this guy's trying too hard.
What's this guy trying to do? No, but even still, though, the message will get sent through, you know?
Right.
I feel like right now, as we've been talking about it, like even prior to this, you've been mentioning the book. And like, my thing right now is I'm trying to get like a whole structure going on right now where it's going to start off with my family to begin with, you know? Like I'm real big on like finances and whatnot. And I've been applying it to myself. And I guess I used to like try to mention it to a couple friends here and there, but there was kind of like not that interested. So like, all right, kept it to myself.
Sure.
So now, as we're going through the whole COVID thing and everything, a lot of people are losing their jobs. You know, families have to be a lot more well connected. So I brought up the conversation a couple times with my family. What's our plan? What's our plan as a group, as a whole, as a collective? You know, so like I was mentioning, my dad being very innovative and very like just positive and having that ambition. He has all that, but there's that level of like not having that control or having that idea written down. So I feel like it's up to me to sit down, talk about it, and you know, get a plan together. But at the same time, create a structure where that could benefit other people in other households, whatever it might be. You know, because I feel like just how you're mentioning that plan and you feeling that connection with that friend, you should apply that to your family as well. You know, so like right now, that's my challenge. It's not an actual challenge, but it's a mental challenge where it's like, how do I go about getting real topics, real ideas, and talking about them with family members? Obviously, it's different because you might not have that sense of clicking with them, you know? You gotta like come from a very grounded level and be like, hey,
very grounded, very practical.
Very practical. Where do you want to see ourselves in 5-10 years? You know, for starters. And my personal situation, I'm trying to think of this in 20, 30, 40 years. You know, where do you want to be? What's the game plan? You know, you can't just do little things here and there. You have to either take on long-term investments or, you know, get together with specific family members and, you know, in my case, we'll build a business, you know? So it's that challenge of creating that structure just how you would with the book, you know? Getting family together and getting everyone in the same mindset where it's like, hey, where are we going to be at? You know, where are we going to be at in these couple of years, and find out who, not necessarily the person who needs help the most, but, you know, who needs that little kick. You know, it's like you got someone who's very talented but is kind of very timid. Help that person out so you can help each other out, you know? I mean, I guess where that kind of came from is when I was a kid, my dad always told me, he's like, you know what, like when you're home and it's just you and your mom and your siblings, you're the man in the house, you got to take care of them. You know? So it was always that mindset where it's like, all right, I got to take care of it. You know, I have to be the one with the plan of what are we going to do. In case of emergency, it's got to be you. You know, so take this 20 plus years, you know, that's still the mentality. But as I've grown, another aspect, I guess, to the question I asked is prior to, I've learned that helping a lot of people is a lot more beneficial than just helping yourself. That was one of the things that achieving my goals and being where I was, I helped a lot of people out. And even now, I've helped a lot of people out, but I could still do so much more, you know? In the case where you guys are writing the book, and the intent is to help a lot of people out, you know? Try to spread that knowledge, that mentality, but it comes from a very sincere place, you know, on your end and on my end too. So it's something that I need to focus on and be like, hey, I'm coming from the warmest place in my heart, but we got to get our shit together, you know? So there's kind of that little challenge, but it's something that I would like to talk to you a little bit more. Actually, I'm actually waiting on your book. So I want to see where you're coming from, you know? I feel like you could find ideas or mentors anywhere, you know? So definitely talking to you's been very helpful as far as the direction that I want to go, you know?
Absolutely.
Coming out of my comfort zone as just feeling like a regular average person to knowing the value that you have and putting it out to help other people, you know, because you never know who you can help in whichever way, you know. Right. So,
you know, everything will connect in many different ways.
Yeah.
You know, one of our lessons is about being of service to others, and it's such a powerful thing, man. It's such a powerful thing. Did you ever have Mr. Lapellis as an English teacher at HB? Well, this one time he told me something really interesting, man, and he said to me, he was a Jewish guy, and he's like, hey, Jesus, like, after class, he's like, yeah, I'd like to tell you something real quick. Do you have a minute? And I was like, sure. You know, I was never a great student, but I was I was nice, like a nice guy.
Yeah, generally.
Especially nice to teachers and shit, because they were, I got taught respect, respect to elders and shit, and they were clearly my elders, so I'd respect them. And so I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And he's like, in my tradition, in my religion, they teach us that when you give a little bit, like God always pays you back. And I was like, wait a minute, I wonder if that's true. Because that was during a transitional time in my life where a couple years back, I was kind of a thief, just a thief. It probably came from also like the fact that I didn't have a lot of possessions growing up. So I wanted what I could get, and I would to some extent.
Yeah.
But I always felt like a karmic energy. My shit would get stolen.
Oh,
consistently.
Yeah.
Especially the shit that I loved the most, which was my bikes. My bikes always got jacked. And so when I heard that message, it connected to these like Eastern philosophies and everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, there's gotta be some realness to this shit.
Oh, for sure.
So I just started from that moment forward, bro. Sophomore year and on, I've tried to practice it as much as possible. Where like if I had something, I'd give it. I'd just give it. And I'd give and I'd give and I'd give. And to this day, walking out, like there's a lot of poor people in our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of people outside of the supermarkets. As every time if I got something, I don't even care what it is. Boom, boom, boom. And to some degree, you can say it's a little selfish of me because in a sense, it's not like I do it because I think that God owes me something.
Yeah.
But I do it because I believe in that energy.
Yeah.
I believe.
That gratitude, you guys give out love,
And not only that, bro, but the joy that bursts out of people. That is why I aspire to be a philanthropist. Because it really, really produces an effect, like a lateral effect in society, or I should rather say like a domino effect, right? Where
it does have
I produced good, and there's no guarantee that good will grow exponentially, but there's a possibility.
There's a possibility,
and that's the possibility that I fuck with, And so don't get me wrong, man. Like I'm just as terrible as a guy, and just as I spread positivity out to the universe, I also spread negativity.
Yeah.
So, but that I just gotta keep it real.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like my thing is, I've come to terms with before. I used to find a little joy in just being like an asshole sometimes.
It's fun.
It's for shits and giggles. It's just what it is, But you have to take into consideration, just like you're saying, there's little moments where you get checked. Life, karma, check, call it whatever you want.
Oh yeah.
It will come back to you. So after you start realizing you do things selflessly, and in those moments where something positive will happen to you, it's kind of like, whoa, it's all that good that I put out. It finally came back, But it comes with just having like a pure mentality, wanting to help others, and it's a word that you had mentioned before, which is harmony. And after we had that conversation, it stuck to me because that's essentially what it is. You're trying to create harmony within the life that you're living.
Right.
If you go outside the store and you see this like poor woman, asking for money because she can't feed her kids, the very least that you could do is give a couple bucks or maybe some food or whatever. But you're creating harmony within like civilized people,
Yeah.
or even yourself within yourself.
Right. You're creating harmony within the ecosystem.
Yep.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't have the imagination or the comprehensive ability to visualize and understand that they are a part of the ecosystem, right? So if you're pushing cocaine, or you're pushing crack, or you're pushing all this shit, yeah, I get it. You think you're a big dog because you're an entrepreneur and you're obviously making thousands of dollars every single day. I'm not knocking the hustle nor the mentality, but what I am critiquing is the fact that you are bringing pain, misery, and destruction to your very own ecosystem. So the very reason that you are how you are, which we all are the same, we're on the same boat, we've suffered, we've struggled, we've endured the same, structural lives, but we're instead of elevating it, right? Instead of elevating the ecosystem, we're depleting it, right? And so it's funny because they say that in the 70s and 80s it was it was the government that brought crack to the barrios and the black neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But this is what I love about power, is that the people who pull the strings, they understand that they only have to do it for so long, and eventually we do it amongst ourselves.
You do it amongst yourselves, for sure.
I don't know if you noticed, but like there's this video and Derek Gracie posted it, I think yesterday, of a KKK guy.
Saw that.
And it was very powerful.
It's very powerful. The message is clearly there, They were just saying, all we have to do is just take guns, drugs, and alcohol to the hoods, and they do it themselves. Mm-hmm. They kill themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's that part of the mentality, and it's one of the drives that I've had now as an adult that I've learned from other mentors, is that if you want to create a positive change, you can't rely on the government for sure. It has to be on yourself. You have to become a leader one way or another. And you could be a thought leader, or you could be a leader by actually, you could still be part of, Congress or the Senate, whatever you might want to be. You can still do it. It'll make a change. But what would make a change in your community, in my case, is being a business owner. I know I have a possibility of creating jobs. And I could help people. If there's a person, this is a real story that like really got to me, was that we had a paletero guy, right? He's a new guy, and he was kind of young too, looked like my age. And I had just moved out at the time, I believe, and I was coming to munch with like my siblings and stuff. And my dad comes in, he starts talking to the guy, "Look, ¿de dónde eres?" That like, how'd you get here? All this stuff, and he's being real open. And he used to do construction. Turns out this guy was a welder too. And as we're leaving, my sister pulls me aside and she's like, "Hey, like, if you ever see the guy and you ever have a job, you could give this guy a job." And it just fucking like dawned on me, and I was like, I have the power to give people jobs. I have the power to help out my own community in one way or another, And it's like, I'm not necessarily cleaning out all the crack houses or whatever, but you're helping one person, and that love or appreciation that you give to one person could spread out to others. Just like you were saying, it may not reach a whole bunch of other people, but it'll get a select few, and it'll make an impact for someone. So I'm very aware of it. It's one of my drives now where I could just not blame it on the government. Like, oh, we need more jobs. No, create it. Do yourself. If you feel like that is a problem, you could, find a solution. Mm-hmm. Give out a job. Maybe it's just one, maybe two. You're not creating millions of jobs, but you're, solving something, and you're maybe not saving someone's life, but really making an impact on someone's life.
Right.
So I feel like that's very important. Like, don't knock the hustle, but you have to have a good intention behind it. And by helping other people, that just helps you.
100%. And I think that's one of the major premises of capitalism that is very misunderstood amongst the left, because of the aspect of how can one be selfish and help others. It's sometimes it seems a little paradoxical, a little self-contradicting, mm-hmm. but I think it's very practical. Like if we can walk you through it, I think it can make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But it's because it does vary by individual.
It does vary by individual, and what you see the most is that there's still, greed. Like we still see a lot of like small mom and pop shops. They got regular employees that are getting paid regular wages, but you see the owner. Mind you, they've been doing this for a very long time, so they're enjoying the fruits of their labor, but they could, help out a little bit more. Maybe they can, maybe they can't, but that's their goal. Right. That was their financial goal, and that's one of those things that we can't really say too much about because that person planned for it. You can't knock him off his horse because you didn't. So it's one of the challenges where it does become a moral thing as far as, like, let's say an owner, someone who can help. Just like you're saying, a philanthropist, someone of, either wealth or status that can help out a lot more using the resources. You can use a few more resources. You don't need everything that you have. You could really help someone else.
Right.
So there is that level of it, you know.
But that's the thing, right? It's like there's like various different mentalities within the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that if you're a legit entrepreneur and you do not care about society, fine. You have every right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to pin you against the wall because now I'm projecting my own insecurities upon you.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually means that, you know, I'm wrong. I'm wrong because I do not have power over your life. Like, what gives me the right to believe, like honestly believe that I'm correct and therefore I should tell you how to live your life? Because if somebody told me how to live my life and they came into my house right now and said, hey dog, what the fuck, you can't be doing a podcast right now.
Yeah.
I'd be really upset. I'd be very upset. You know, and if God blesses me one day and I can make a lot of money off of like podcasting and things like that, it's like, this is my life. And then I can turn around and give as much money as I want to whoever and build places and teach leadership. Because that's what I was actually going to say is like, as a leader, right, as an entrepreneurial leader, you want to build more leaders.
Yeah.
Because a genuine leader does things for the people, always. And these are things that I've learned actually from groups like the EZLN in Chiapas, Mexico. You know, when they were talking about how what is democracy? Democracy is from the bottom up. That means that you respect the community.
Yeah.
You listen to the community. What do you need? This is what we need.
Yeah.
And every community that has been of empowerment to their communities, whether it was the Black Panther Party, whether it's the Nation of Islam, whatever, they have their 10-point plans.
Yeah.
And these 10-point plans is always about what benefits the collective.
So jumping off onto that, I've been just doing my research on, you know, Jewish communities. Like when you see like, you know, either the Chinese culture or the Indian culture, they're very together. They stick together and they have a plan, you know. They themselves help each other out and they've built a whole structure, a whole family structure where either they could buy businesses, homes or whatever, but they're still working as a collective, you know. That's one of those big goals for me that I look at, where if I see my family, that's what I would want from them. But at the same time, you're kind of working from the bottom, so you have to work on the community aspect, where it gets very difficult when, you know, you start building it, you know, like who do you let into the community, either if it's family or not family or someone who you would like to work close with, you know.
Right.
So essentially, you know, you got to be at the same time selective, but, you know, make sure that the goal is shared within the collective community, you know, where everyone's like, all right, we're all in it for this is the mindset, this is the goal, we're all going to work towards it, you know.
100%.
So I've learned from them as far as the structure. I mean, it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's something to aspire to.
So what is it? Like, what's the structure?
So in my particular case, like I was mentioning earlier, it's more of a financial structure where I want to make sure that first and foremost, my siblings, my family, like we're all okay financially, personally. Either it's your credit or what debts do you have. You know, let's talk about it. Let's control it. You know, let's see where you need to put more focus on. What do you need? What are some of your needs? You know, how can we help each other out as a collective? It's, oh, you need that. I could let you borrow it. I could let you use it. Whatever, you know. And just kind of leverage from each other. You know, just to begin with. Ideally, I'd like that to bounce back. So I've mentioned to you the goal for my business, Moctezuma and Sons, where I'd like to have like some kind of hub where you can find resources for a lot of other people, you know. I know within our community there's a lot of undocumented immigrants that, you know, find it difficult to get jobs. And we know that that's a reality, you know. As far as helping creating jobs, that's a possibility, you know. You can make that happen, but it calls for a lot of other people to kind of come in together and help, right? You know, I could help in creating a job in this field, but maybe there's someone else that has another job in a different field, you know? Like, I've always felt the need to network with other people. I guess that's one of my things now. Like, as time has been going, obviously the whole COVID thing, I feel like we've all gotten a little more anti-social because we kind of have to stay in, you know? And at the same time, this is a drawback because we need to come together in difficult times like now and think of a plan, you know? Obviously, we just got some changes in the White House, so now what is our game plan? You know, we can't just expect change from there. It has to come from the community. Change has to come from the bottom, you know? So what is the game plan? You know, you yourself as an educator, what do you want to teach kids? Because you know this is going to feed them for years, you know? They might grab that one little aspect of it and, you know, help their family or help themselves. That's essentially the same aspect with teaching someone else, you know, financial keys, you know? How can you fend for yourself financially in this economy that we're in, or just in the United States? California is very expensive. How are you going to maneuver it, you know? You don't want to be able to move or have to move because you kind of have to, because you lost your job.
You don't have a choice.
You have no choice,
right?
You know? So I feel like that's one aspect where we do have to take into consideration. And the more you kind of just put it aside, the more you're letting time pass, and you're not gaining the knowledge. If you skip out on like 5 years of kind of just not getting your financials together, you could have made so much money within those 5 years and then duplicate it as years come, you know? So you're kind of just, you're not out of the game, but you're kind of losing leverage in the game, you know? And as far as the way I see it, like, I want to see my family do well, and like, I have a goal. And my goal, like right now, is to own a ranch. I'm looking at buying property. That's the next move from there, you know. And what do I want to do with it? Who's going to be there? You know, what's the game plan for the next couple of years there? You know, so this is something that I of course have to talk to with my family, but it's something that can benefit so many more. You know, like, we've all kind of grown up, you know, here, and you know. Not necessarily poverty, but compared to some other person, it might be poverty, you know? And like, we don't want to be in the same situation again. We want to get better, you know? So that's definitely like my thing. So I'm trying to find little aspects. It's still in my mind, but the execution of it is being done and learned from. So as I'm going, I'm taking little key aspects from, like, let's say yourself. With you actually wrote it down and there's an actual plan, you know? I'd like to take something like that and like write it down for, obviously, first my family. That helps someone else down the way. Go ahead, you know? Help others help themselves, you know? You're not necessarily going to fish for the guy. You're going to teach him how to fish.
Right.
You know? And then just go from there, because there's a bigger sense of community behind it, you know? So I feel like I'm not going to bring a lot of people together, but it'll create a community within itself.
Absolutely.
You know?
So I mean, there's many points to touch on, and so just to wrap it back, you know, family structure. Two really big things that you said was credit and land ownership.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those two things, just so that you guys are able to kind of recap it and realize, like, when you work as a collective. Those are two really important features that you want to work on in order to really establish yourself financially to some degree. Of course, there are thousands of other things that you can probably do as well, but I did ask him, and I said, well, what did you pick up? What did you learn from these Jewish, Asian communities, which are doing very well off because they focus on the family,
mm-hmm.
right? And then when the whole community has a strong family, it's like, again, the ecosystem.
It's the ecosystem. You're back at it.
The ecosystem's doing well. Your people are doing well emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
People are doing well financially, and they are also people who are spiritually good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whatever belief systems they may or may not have.
Definitely.
So, you know, is that out there?
I think so.
Oh, okay, that shit was really fucking with my fucking train of thought. But, you know, the other point, like, I don't remember the other point because that shit fucked me up. But at least, you know, like going back to family structure. Oh, I remember now.
Mhm.
Good. The second component to that was like the idea of like building that community base.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, just yesterday I was talking to one of my friends, Sergio, and I told him, I was like, look, bro, like in our community, we need to be like a star. And when you look at a star, it has many different points,
Mhm.
many different points of strength.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, the star is still brilliant and potent. And we need all these different leaders doing all these different things, but with the same purpose, with the same, by wanting the same outcome.
Yeah.
And by doing so, again, we free ourselves of depending on the government. Because, look, man, I have a lot of friends that are fucking knee deep into the government bullshit, either a Democrat or Republican. Like, I'm a government teacher. I know what they're talking about. Like, I understand the policies, and I understand the Constitution, and I understand all that framework. And it's like being a fan of a certain show.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? Like, you're so deep in a show, but it's like, bro, you know there's other shows out there, right? No, but this is the best fucking show, you know, ever.
It's the funniest one.
Yeah, that's what I see. Those things in my friends, they're just so knee deep in it that they kind of take on like this tribalistic mentality where it's like,
yeah,
Joe Biden is like, they'll ride him to fucking the end, or Donald Trump and they'll ride him to the end, and it's like, really, let's really think about it. Let's really think about it.
Same with sports too.
Yeah, but like the sports, I let the sports fly because it's fun, and everyone knows that. Of course, there's the fools that are religious about it and shit. Yeah. But I'm talking about the fools that are act religious about politics, and it's like, look, bro, if you really put all that energy into creating your own business, your own brand, grassroots organizing, mobilizing, you will get more shit done. You will get more shit done. And
help yourself more.
And that's why, like, I just brought it up, because it's like we were talking about the community and how our communities are basically disemboweled. Like, we have a lot of tough guys, but we don't have a lot of tough intellectuals that can really fight for you verbally, that can really fight for you on paper, that can really fight for you in these multiple different aspects.
Yeah.
That will ultimately just push everyone and propel everyone forward. But I will say this. Like, we are a new kind of generation in this country.
Definitely.
Like, dude, our for span of, like, let's say the past 30 years.
30 years, yeah.
There's a collective of us who we are the first to be educated. You know what I'm saying? And we're just coming from people who sometimes didn't even know how to read a book, didn't even know how to write. And so we need to be the leaders of the future for our communities.
Definitely.
And I don't even mean that in a self-righteous way, because I don't even think of that. I don't think that I am a self-righteous person. I'm just doing me. But at the same time, it's like I've been taking on that role for a long time.
Yeah.
Of trying to motivate, trying to inspire, trying to give something back to my own people, which is why I became a teacher anyways in the first place.
That's crazy. Honestly, now that I've been going through my life as of lately, it's hitting me more and more. I think I'd be a great teacher, but it's just the initial thing for me was learning business so you could have, a foot in the game. So now that I feel like I have a foot in the game, I want others to know. I want to help other people in situations that they could get themselves out of only if they knew these small little details. So I'm seeing the value in being an educator and wanting to be there and putting your effort into the community.
Right.
So as you're a little more conscious of it, you start thinking, okay, I need to do my part. It's one thing being loud, doing this, saying that. You got to act on it. What are you going to do to help the community? At the end of the day, it's all about your actions.
100%.
100%. What are you going to do?
Right.
So you know, as of like right now, you know, what's the game plan? You know,
Right.
I feel like I think I brought it up to you before, where we need to have a sense of like a community within a community, and that's where you're talking about the star. You're talking about key people that are in different sectors, either in business and government and health, whatever it might be, and we can come together and like actually have intellectual conversations about how we're all doing as a collective. You know, some of the changes that are happening or are gonna happen. How are we gonna adapt to it? You know, so it's something that we need to talk as a whole, and it becomes very clouded when it's just, you know, individualized within people. They have those thoughts to themselves, but they don't have anyone that they could talk to and execute with.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's building that sense of community. You know, so I feel like personally that's one of my challenges, where I feel like I'm getting out of my shell and, you know, just being more, doing more, being completely fine with it. You know, I've gotten to the point where I do what I want, say what I want, but I'm very conscious of it, you know, and everything that I do is towards the goal, the ultimate goal. You know, like right now, as far as my business I've been doing is for 4 years already. It's been going really well. I feel like it can be better, but now as I'm working, as I'm there, where am I gonna see myself in the next couple of years? You know, where's the trajectory going? I'm on my way there, but where do I need to make adjustments? In this case, is how do I help more people? It's not necessarily about how much money I get, it's how many people can I touch and help and inspire, you know? I feel like right now it's one of those challenging things, because just like you were saying, sometimes you don't know how you can like help others, or sometimes you just, they're not interested, you know?
Yeah, and people like that will always be, and that's okay. You know, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm very certain of myself at this point in my life, where it's like, when I was younger, I had this saying where I'd say, I'm not gonna throw pearls at swine. You know, and it's like, yeah, I mean, if you don't want no gain, then fuck it. There's somebody else who's craving, who right now, bro, there's a kid somewhere in HP terrorized by what's going on around them, but they keep thinking, somewhere in their minds and somewhere in their hearts, they keep thinking about freedom. They keep thinking about making it. They keep thinking about more access to resources. And, you know, there's a lot of children like that. And, you know, those are the people who hopefully the universe puts in. Once we have these mechanisms in place, hopefully we can get to educate them so that they're able to make big moves.
Yeah.
You know, and so like right now, the best we got for something like that is sending kids to college. And that's great. I think that's a really good thing. But obviously it gets very complicated, you know, and I've talked about this before on my show. But essentially sometimes it's like when that's the only plan we're giving motherfuckers, that's when shit is not really gonna liberate us.
It's not beneficial.
Because we're throwing everybody into that machine. We should only throw some foods into that machine because they want to be put into that machine.
Or they're just not ready for it yet. You know, it's not that they're not, but they're just not ready for it yet. You know?
Right. So you want to prepare them, you know, and I've actually heard 19 Keys talk about this, you know, in detail. And one of the best things he said was like, look, man, how about after high school you start a business instead? Now you position yourself to actually not only gain some financial advancements in life, but you also become more mature.
Yeah.
Which by 100%. Default, you're able to better make a decision. You know, so the last thing we want is more of our people in debt. And that's what most of people are going to end up being, is in debt. You go to college, kind of don't learn shit. They give you a piece of paper, and now you're able to make a job that's probably going to make you a little bit more than minimum wage. But at the end of the day, you're still an indentured servant, because now we're making the banks richer, which most of the times they're not even part of our community anyways.
Yes. Altogether, you're 100% right. You know, that's essentially the direction that we're living in right now. A lot of people are going through that, and it's very difficult. You know, like I know a lot of people that graduated and quite honestly didn't really have a plan after. And then they just got sent into, what we're all into, you get to work and that's it, You thought it was going to save you, but in reality it didn't, I feel like when I first started working as a business, I learned a lot of my biggest lessons. Like, I actually had to take someone to court,
Shit.
Yeah, it's just a lot of things that happen to you because, there's small little details that you don't think about until it happens. And then once it happens, you're like, you might take it as failure, it might bring you down, but the reality is that you're learning from it. And the sooner you do it, the better. Imagine learning that lesson when you're 40, when you think you're financially stable, but you're learning this lesson of don't miss this detail. And then now you lost a couple $100,000 or whatever it might be, whatever dollar quantity it might be. You don't want to learn that lesson when you're 40, you'd rather learn it when you're 20, So if you were to get out of high school and start a business, you learn that lesson right off the gate. You don't have to wait 20, 30 years to learn that lesson, but it costs you a little bit more, So I completely agree, you have to put yourself out there. I feel like one of the key things now as an adult is you have to learn to sell. You
have to learn to sell.
You have to learn to sell.
Okay.
Yeah, either if it's a product, if it's yourself, if it's your ideas, whatever it might be. It has to touch you in a certain way. In this case, your book. You're coming from the heart. You're coming from the soul, where this will touch somebody, and it'll sell them the concept of, shit's cool, shit's great. Don't look down on yourself for whatever reason. Like, things are coming up. It'll put you in a perspective, and this person bought it. Not physically, but they bought the idea of the concept of what you're actually writing and trying to put out, So I feel like learning how to sell, maybe not directly in those words, but that concept in general has to be learned quite early. Because if not, you're just working somewhere and you're not necessarily selling.
It almost seems to me like you're saying more than learning how to sell is learning how to create value.
Creating value.
Because
definitely.
Right, it's like it's really the creation of value that allows you to make a profit.
Yep.
Because I can't walk around selling my book without having built some type of base.
Credible value.
Right, because then it's like, yo, this guy's completely random. The motherfucker says it's gonna inspire people and people are gonna be motivated, but I haven't really been doing shit. But I mean, it could still be the shit, and it could still take the fuck off, because that's really one of the best things about our society is like shit takes off when it's really good.
Yeah, when it's really good, people notice.
There's a combination of many things that could happen, but essentially, yeah, man, I think that at this point I've created some value. And I of course I'm not gonna prance around and be like, I've got the most value ever.
So value, right there you go.
Right, so
it's how it starts.
It is value, man, and I admire it because it's people like us that can one day say, we started from the very bottom when it comes to business. I'm not gonna hate on people like Donald Trump or whatever. The motherfucker got $1 million as a loan at a time period when it was a lot more than it is today. Yeah. You get the game. You get the blueprint. You know what I'm saying? One day we're gonna give the blueprint.
Essentially, that's what it is. So you're kind of getting it. Like, in my sense, my occasion right now is I want to leave the blueprint. I want to create it for, first and foremost, myself. If it's not working for me, it probably won't work for someone else. So I need to take care of myself first. Make sure it works. As things are going right now, I feel good and it's working. So I'm spitting knowledge to my siblings here and there. Like, hey, take care of your credit. If you have a goal, when you start thinking of like influential people, they don't think 5-10 years ahead. They think 20 plus. You got to think way down the line. So everything that you do, like my sister, she just graduated from UC Irvine not too long ago, and right before she graduated, she was just a delivery driver. And I told her, I was like, why don't you work somewhere that'll apply to what you're learning now? And she applied to the Natural History Museum and she got the job.
That's awesome. Man.
And it's like you're just building off of what you already know, and then you create more value to yourself. That's what you're doing. So it's like you have to do that in every aspect that you do. Everything that you do has to create some value to yourself in the future. So it's like that. It sounds very simple, but in many cases it's very difficult for some people. Maybe they don't see it as easily as others do. So my thing right now is like having enough value for myself to be able to right now invest. You know, like I have enough value, financial value, where I could put some money aside, and that's the goal. You know, obviously getting there is one goal. The second goal is going to be what am I going to do with it? You know, where's revenue going to come from? You know, essentially, you in the world that we live in. This might even be like going off topic, but like everyone's got to pay their dues. Everyone's got to pay. Nothing's free. Everything's got to pay something. Rent's not free. You know, your mortgage isn't free. How do you go about jumping out of that system where your assets are paying for you? You know, you already invested in something a couple years ago where it's generating enough to take care of either your mortgage payment, either your car, if you just got a car, whatever it might be, or even your lifestyle in general. You know, it's just a different train of thought. How do you utilize what you have and give it more value? You know, obviously in many cases, how do you make a dollar work for you?
Right. So
that's your greatest.
So are you open to talk about some healthy investments?
Yeah, for sure.
Healthy investments.
Yeah.
And if possible, you know, let's kind of take it like in steps.
Yeah, I'm down.
Like what is a healthy investment for a beginner? What is a healthy investment for an intermediate?
First and foremost,
and so on and so forth.
First and foremost, it's yourself.
Okay.
It's the process is definitely a mindset, and it starts with yourself. You know, you have to make sure that you're comfortable with yourself in the aspect and the direction that you're going to take, because sometimes it happened to me in the very beginning where I started taking a certain road, but my emotions weren't quite ready. You know, like I had to grasp certain aspects of the business and not take it personal or take it to heart. Where this is business and that's what it is, you know? I gotta be very professional and I can't take things personal. So within myself, I had to learn a little bit more. Obviously, failure is another thing. People take failure very different. So you gotta learn to accept it and be okay with it and, you know, just take it on the chin sometimes. And you gotta be in a good mental state where it's like, all right, you know, you gotta know who you are and the value that you have, because sometimes you can get someone that'll make you feel like you don't, either for their gain or whatever it might be, but it happens. Haters, whatever you want to call them, you know, you have to keep yourself on the same mindset and on track with what your goal is. You know, first and foremost, I felt like that was a big learning curve for me, because I had to be completely okay with myself and not worry about what people thought, first and foremost.
Okay.
After that is investing in myself again, but in things that had a high dollar value, either to society or whatever it might be.
So what's something that has a high value?
So to me, I got, as far as my education now, I do accounting. I'm an accountant, so I do all my own books. So it's one of those benefits that I gave myself where it's like, if I understand the world in dollar figures, it'll make it easier for me to understand business. And then from there, I studied welding, so which is another trade where a lot of people don't know. It's been my challenge that whenever people ask me for jobs, it's a pricey gig because of the machinery and the type of level of work that you're doing. It's very intricate. People don't really see it. So it's a very like high paid, you know, job, trade. Same if you get an electrician, a plumber, or whatever it might be, you know, a therapist. If you're going to a therapist, it's very specific. You got to pay a certain dollar figure, you know. The better you get, the more you can charge. So from there, that's another thing that could create value, you know. I mean, another thing too, when I started on my journey, when I moved back to LA, I was so eager to just do it because I just felt ballsy, and I was like, you know, let's get started. You know, I started getting a couple jobs here and there. The ball was rolling, made a couple more investments here and there, got some assets, and I was like, all right, you know, I feel a little comfortable, but at the same time, like it wasn't a secure gig. And what made it challenging was that I wasn't learning still. The learning had taken a pause. So that's when I realized, well, I had been told by other mentors before, was like, you know what, you still need to have another job that'll teach you aspects that will correlate to the jobs that you're doing now. So then, yeah, I did. I finished the welding course and I started working for the company I work for now, Granger. So it's all like industrial supply. So I'm seeing all kinds of material go in and out of all these facilities. I specialize in aerospace companies. So I like that in my job, it's just me. And I go in and I'm knocking on the door of someone's, like the field manager or whatever it might be, purchasing. And I'll knock up straight up to the door and I'll have the confidence to like approach these people, Normally, if you were an employee, you'd feel hesitant to go talk to the store manager or whatever it might be. You're like, oh man, that's the boss's boss. I just walk up in there and be like, hey, how's it going, man? Like, these are the services I provide and this is how I can help you. I'm being surrounded by all this material, so that alone gave me the confidence for me to approach other people, other businesses, and then just be like, hey, this is a product that I have and this is how I can support you. So it took away from like feeling shy and kind of just, breaking out of my shell. And then same thing with the supplies. Like sometimes I'll go do jobs and the person there might not know what they need exactly, and just by looking at it, be like, all right, you're gonna need this and that. And I'm already well aware of what's available to me, to utilize in a particular job. So that helped my business, where it's training me. I'm still getting a job. I'm still an employee, but that's only benefiting me that much more, And once I started doing that, once I started getting a sense of security, obviously assets are very key. There's going to be a lot of things that you want to buy, but you have to take into consideration, if you buy this, will it make you more money down the line? That's always my train of thought whenever I purchase anything or anything of like high dollar value. Can I make more money out of this? So I'll kind of budget myself sometimes. Like I want to buy equipment, it's like $500, $1,000, and it's like, can I potentially make $2,000 out of that? So once I was set and secure with that, I was already doing more research on stocks and bonds and indexes and all that stuff, but I didn't have my foot in that much. So then once I started, feeling a little more comfortable with the business, I started investing. And, I kind of just left it at that. More than anything, I kind of saw it as, if I'm going to go out with my friends and I'm probably going to go out to the bar and I'm just going to spend like $50 in drinks. So I'm going to just spend those $50 in stocks or ETFs, whatever it might be, Bitcoin's really big right now too. So in the very beginning, when I first started studying business, I studied it because I didn't like it. I didn't like the system that we're in, and I didn't really like the idea of me being a big participant in it, but the reality is you have to learn the game to play the game. So then comes the whole conscious consumerism or conscious capitalism. Is some of the terms that I've felt comfortable with as of now, where it's like I'm a lot more conscious of the aspect of whatever I'm doing and the positive that I'm bringing out, and not necessarily the negative, So I started getting into stocks, and I started going after companies that I full on supported, products that I use. Like I have a Subaru car, I invested in Subaru. Whenever I go do maintenance on my car, I take it to the dealer. Whenever I buy parts, I get it from there. My pops has a Ford, so I invested in Ford too. Whenever, obviously you kind of have to see, this is where we get a little more in detail, we probably won't have time to touch on, but you have to do your research on companies. Just how in school they teach you to do researches on certain theories or topics, or you have to do the same thing with companies. How well are they doing?
So just a couple pointers to specifically research to find out whether a company is healthy or not to invest in. What are some pointers that you would say this is a key indicator of a healthy company, therefore I think it's a good idea you can invest in?
So for me, what I do is I see this is one thing that they taught me in school, is to see their what are they called, their in their websites. If you always go to the bottom, and sometimes they'll have like a little investors column, you click on where it says investors, and it'll give you all their details, either profitability, gives you all their margins, and you kind of know where they're at either in quarters or yearly, 5 years. Me personally, I started doing that in the very beginning when I got into it, getting on the whole spiel, mainly like on the big companies that have the most information, like McDonald's, Walmart, because they're so big. You know?
They kind of have the rap sheet ready.
They have it ready for people to see it and just go from there. What I've been doing is I'll see the last 5 years, and I'll kind of see the trends. Either by the time of the year, what product that they came out with, what are they doing in the news. A big key that I use is Financial Times, their website. So they give you like a whole, like if you click on like their little name, it'll show you how they're doing by the day, the week, the month, the year, 5 years. And it'll tell you what they're doing on the news. Like what I did a couple months ago was when COVID first came out, I saw that there was word that Pfizer was already getting started on like the antidote. So I invested in Pfizer. I bought 2 pieces of stock and I just left it as is. And then as of now, current day, they're saying that Pfizer has a 90% positive, antidote. So to me, in my mind, I was kind of like, all right, we're in the middle of a crisis, what are the big pharmaceutical companies that are out right now and who has a bigger leg up, And off of, obviously, it'd be considered a stock tip, So I went off that, and I was kind of going off their credibility, and I was like, you know what, there's some sort of profitability here. So I put some money into it, and now, I mean, since the news, it just shot up. So it's kind of just, being very aware of the circumstances that are going on. And that'll kind of give you more or less an idea of what's kind of going. But normally, I would kind of just go off of, like, how they've been going for the last 5 years. 1 year, If you see that they're negative on a dip, what happened on the highest point and what caused it, and is there a chance for it to go back up? So whenever you buy it when it's very low, they say you're just buying it at a discount.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just like when the coronavirus initially hit.
Exactly.
All the stocks were like, boom.
Yep.
Like they went on a downward spiral, and it was like Black Friday. You know what I'm saying?
It was like Black Friday. Yeah.
Black Friday for some fucking stocks, bro.
Yeah.
Go get your fucking stocks, bro.
Go get your money.
Because they will rise again.
Yeah.
Right. So aside from like stocks and stuff, like, are there other healthy investments for people to make?
Oh man, well obviously real estate is huge. I don't know too much of real estate. That's where I'm leaning towards right now.
To like start learning and
start learning more about real estate, what the process is, what's the margin. All I know right now is that the housing market follows the stock market by a couple of years. So even though we're at a decline right now, the housing won't show. It won't show until a couple of years. You have to give people time to like process the economy, see how it hits them, and then it gives them time to find a solution if they can or can't, and then for those that just don't, it's just going to get discounted property at the end.
Right.
So you kind of have to, time it as well, but not too long. And then as far as investments as well, I'm real big at looking at the Fed. Obviously now...
The Federal Reserve?
Federal Reserve, exactly. So with the Federal Reserve right now, I think they're like close to like 0% interest rate, which for a business is great, Obviously, if you wait till later, this is the time where you can make some big decisions.
Some serious
moves right now. But you have to take into consideration the risk behind it.
Which is probably tied to the very young consumer, right? The consumer not even having the means to participate in your business.
Exactly. So that's another key thing too, where we're in a position where a lot of people could start businesses, but what's your market? If there's another lockdown, would you be locked down too? So you kind of have to almost disaster-proof yourself. It's very difficult, but
yeah, it is a huge challenge, bro.
Yeah.
But that's, my friend and I were just talking about earlier how this whole Corona pandemic was a huge blessing for us, and it was a beautiful blessing for us because it freed up blocks of our time to allow us to be creative and to...
That is very true.
And to produce.
And
so, of course, there are businesses like the businesses that are like clubs and the businesses that are like any business where you require close proximity to people and interaction, that obviously is going to get hit. Restaurants, things of that nature. It's just like feel dearly for a lot of these people, you know, because these are their livelihoods, and I see a lot of businesses that have, you know, found the loopholes.
Yeah.
And they're doing it outside now, and I'm a big supporter of that, bro. A couple weeks ago, friends and I, we were going through Long Beach, and all the bars were basically outdoors.
Yeah, and it's real nice too.
And
right?
I was like, yeah, I fuck with this vibe. It's so much more lively. It's so much more communal. It's so in a sense, man, I think it's my own optimism and way of life and my expression that I've seen the goodness, I've seen the positivity out of the pandemic.
Yeah, there really has been.
And so, look, of course, there's been over 200,000 people that have died, and you know that's not cool. But in my own life, I found the light at the end of that tunnel, and I've allowed it to allow me to say, you know what, bro, we gotta find ways. Again, going back to an earlier point about being solution oriented. If I fixate on the negativity, then the outcome will also be negative, right? You know, the rapper I just had on the other day, they have a club called Polvo, which stands for Positive Living Equals Victorious Outcome.
Oh shit!
And then I was like,
cool.
I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's very clever.
Yeah.
It kind of like merges the practicality with the more like spiritual realm, right? Because
it does, and it kind of took me by surprise. I was like, I was like, that's some powder, you know? And
it's true.
Yeah.
They are talking about that shit. It's a fucking vibe at the club. And you know motherfuckers love their polvo.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So like just to hear that the positive reinforcement behind it, I was like, this is amazing. That's awesome. You know?
Nuts, right?
Yeah, you get away with both, you know?
Yes.
You're giving the people what they want, but at the same time, you're at that positive reinforcement, you know? So that's a beautiful thing.
Very clever.
Yeah, it is very clever. And essentially, like, as like young people and for those entrepreneurs out there, that's the mentality that we have to have, you know? Exactly. Like, we have to adapt quick.
Right.
How do you, like, you remember going out and doing this and that, and it was fun, you know? And now we're going through a pandemic. How do you still make it fun and available to people, and at the same time, you know, be safe about it? You know, it's those, because I've seen a lot of restaurants just straight up close because they're like, no, we can't. And then just there's others, they're just camping outside. They got tables outside. They adapted to it and they created a vibe. You know,
you gotta make it work.
You gotta make it work. There's no way that. I mean, I'm not gonna say that it's not gonna happen where you have no option and like that's what it is. Sometimes that happens, but in many cases, there's different options.
Right.
You could always do something, you know, but it's like you gotta come from the heart, and whenever you do, that's what makes it easier. It makes the solution come out a lot more natural. Where it's like, you know what, like I'm gonna do it because I want people to come and I want people to still have a good time. Let me set it up, you know. They're gonna come. What interested me last time when we were talking about the other day was we were talking about, I think it's Eric, when he had the little mic night in the garage, and it's like an open space for like people, you know, like now.
Oh yeah, shout out to Eric, man. That guy's a real, you know, thought leader.
Yeah.
You know, he's a very conscious man, you know.
Yeah.
Like what the work that he revolves himself around is really the work of the heart, of the spirit.
Yeah.
And it will be rewarded financially.
Yeah. Essentially, that's what it is, you know. But like, as of now, I mean, I don't know if he's still doing his little garage thing or not.
Well, you
like,
can't.
Exactly.
You can't. But he's turned it digital.
Oh, okay.
Where at least again he's like, I gotta do something.
Exactly. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Where I'm sure he had to adapt.
Right.
You know, I don't, you know, keep up as much, but I know of his cause and his purpose, and it's great. But the idea of what if he didn't continue because there wasn't any other way, you know, you can bring those people together. But yeah, you can still do it, you know, Zoom calls, but
it's not as profound. It's not as profound.
It's not as profound.
But yeah, bro, there's a lot of artists that would live off of shit like that, where they perform, they bring their merch. Also, a lot of non-performing artists that would come and set up their little tienditas with their goodie bags and their art and all these different things, and it's like they make they could make potentially hundreds of dollars that night.
Yeah.
Which can potentially turn to paying the rent.
Exactly. Right now that you kind of touched on the whole merch thing, another thing that is an option is there's a lot of people buying and selling off Amazon. A lot of people that I've met, they've gotten to use Alibaba to purchase items like very, very cheap from China or from different places, have it sent. Instead of having it sent to them, it just gets sent to the distribution center, and Amazon just takes care of most of the work, which is kind of amazing considering that someone's utilizing the technology that we have now. You know, like and I always tell this to my siblings sometimes too, where it's like, there's no way in hell that you could just have this $1,000 phone and not make a way to make another couple thousand. Like, it's possible. You need to make it happen one way or another, you know?
Right.
And especially in this situation now, it might be a little tricky, but it's still possible, you know? You can still make moves online and create another financial outlet for yourself, because it's needed. It's needed. That's one thing that I've learned is, like, you have to have multiple streams of income, for sure. Because you just never know, one of them might close down, take a pause.
Yeah, you know who was talking about that a couple days ago? Ben X.
Oh, he did, yeah?
Yeah. So Ben X was like, of course, he's got a lot of charisma and his own, like, mannerisms and his own, like, accents. And it was super, super dope. But he essentially said, he's like, yo, if you only got one stream of income, when shit goes down, you go down.
You're going down. You're the first going down.
But and I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people. I have one main source of income. What happens if I get, under some extreme circumstances, which will not happen, this is all hypothetical, I get let go, you know, I have unemployment for a couple months.
For how long, yeah.
And that's not living. That you get about 70% of your check, and it's like, yo, I need more, man. I don't want to go downwards. I want to go upwards.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's also, you know, where I'm at in my own life, trying to figure out, like, well, what else can I find?
Here's the aspect where you're using your strengths in your favor, where now you have a book coming out. Obviously, it will create a stream of income. It won't be the greatest, but it'll be a stream of income. Down the line, you're utilizing those strengths to come in your favor. You know, this is back to me saying that you're the best investment. Because if you feed yourself whatever it might be other than your regular 9 to 5, that's what's going to pay the bills down the line. You know, you're using that intellectual property to make some income. It won't be till the next one, but that's going to be your strength. You know, the intellectual property that you have. And also, like, you know, little passions. You're telling me that you're into shoes. My little brother just got into buying and selling shoes. Yeah. This guy just, like, bought a pair of Jordans and he flipped it for, like, more than half. I was like, damn. I think he made like $60 out of it, and I was just like, okay, you know,
like, you're on your way.
You have the right mindset already
to doing and living that lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'll be right back. I gotta use the restroom.
Go for it. I'm gonna stand up a little. Yep.
Ah, I feel so much better, bro.
Like kombucha, bro. That's just bomb, but it'll make you go.
Yes.
Actually, I like it a lot too.
Yes, man. But like I said, man, that was like a long day, man. A long day of just a lot. And then obviously like the traffic coming in here was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Bah!
Yo, for me, honestly, I feel like traffic has taught me patience for sure. Being from LA, like it just teaches you patience. And one thing that really helps is just music, bro. Just get you some good music. I was seeing your podcast last time, and you were talking to this one guy about Talib Kweli. And I'm all like, oh damn, I fucking love Talib. You know, like growing up, that's what I heard. Like as far as that young adolescent kid, like you remember when you got that like second wave of consciousness. You get it when you're a little kid and you like finally remember. You start remembering, and then you're like an adolescent. And then you start thinking a little different. We're like, oh shit, you know, I'm a teenager now, or whatever it might be. Like around that time, I started listening to hip hop, underground hip hop. Talib Kweli, Mos Def, Common was my shit, and I didn't think about it up until a couple years ago, where I was like, damn, like I absorbed most of my consciousness from listening to these artists. And even now to this day, like I'm in traffic and I'm bumping this and I'm listening to word for word and I'm still absorbing it, you know? It's very conscious information, and you reflect on it, you act on it, but it like becomes you after so long, you know? So I'm very grateful to listen to hip hop growing up, and even now, you know, it's just very fulfilling, you know? Very spiritual too. So
it's very deep indeed, man. They had some just powerful music. Powerful music, and that's what I loved about music as a teenager, and still is that it has this power. On one side, right, we have a person like myself that's writing a book for a purpose, but what about the motherfuckers that don't even know how to read? Music is more powerful than books in the sense where the message can be reached even larger to larger audiences. So when you think about people like Talib and all of these individuals, they were doing their work, man.
They were doing their work.
And their work really was about the community. And so, you know, I listen to Talib's podcast once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
And it's fucking dope, man. Like, I listened to his whole podcast with Common. And, you know, those are some brothers, man, that are deeply involved in the communities. Yeah. Deeply involved.
Common is one of those guys that, like, you've never met, but I see him as my mentor. Definitely see him as my mentor. Like, he overall has everything that, like, I aspire to be in a person, you know? Or, like, he's a genuinely nice guy, you know? He talks from the heart, good purpose, you know? It's all there. I just don't rap. You know,
of course. I mean, everyone has their gifts and their talents, and we must appreciate each other. And I guarantee you, they had a chance to meet us. There would be a type of mutual respect and appreciation. You know,
you're like, yeah, these guys are in the right path. You know, great guys.
Good for you, brother. You know, do your thing.
Yeah.
Versus, man, get the fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? And I was watching a show between Talib and The Game. You know, shit. So it just goes to show you how much wealth is out there in the internet today, and we're very blessed to be living in this generation today where it's like I'm a piece of that now. You know, like I don't give a fuck if I get 2 views or 200 views, but I'm there. And sometimes you need to force yourself to be known, to be felt, to be understood, because unfortunately, due to lack of resources, lack of talent, lack of all these different things, you will not be pushed into these like realms with the Joe Rogans, right? But that doesn't mean that you must remain silent. It just means that you have your own lane, you have your own purpose, you have your own sphere of impact. Or influence, I should say.
It's more influence for sure. And because so, that's how I felt as just seeing your podcast. I feel like altogether for the last couple of years, the increase in podcast has been amazing, I feel. Like, as far as intellectual growth for a lot of people, emotional, whatever purpose that you use podcasts for, but the general idea and concept is there, you know, it's just straight from the heart, from one person to another, you know, and it's creating, you know, that voice for that person. Like in my case, me right now, where I would normally just, you know, talk to my friends and kind of just begin like this, you know. You know, we could just, you know, chop it up, talk about moves here and there. But now it could reach a whole vast
more people.
Exactly. Who obviously in situations like now, I mean, no one can really go out, so everyone's home watching shit. Everyone's on YouTube, you know, playing games. You could learn something while you're home, just off of someone else's conversation with someone, and absorb that up to the soul, you know, like it'll like really reach you. That's what I've been doing myself. You know, more podcasts every now and then, a lot more reading books for sure, because you know, you're just how you were saying earlier, you know, you're home, you gotta like evaluate yourself, you gotta like reach deep down and, you know, be a lot more proactive with yourself. So podcasts are pretty dope, so I salute you on that, because just by like preparing myself, I started unlocking more things in my mind prior to, where I was like, damn, like, I'm just going to go talk to the guy, but I'm already, like, feeding myself behind it, you know? So it's very beneficial overall. So, props, man, props.
Right. Right. And there's time, bro. There's a lot of time. And if you don't got time, you need to stop bullshitting yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And start making some time.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you that if you didn't have time, you wouldn't go out partying, you wouldn't go out fucking around, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start making excuses about how your life's this and your life that and it sucks, and like, that's just yapping and complaining.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm reading a book right now, man, which is about like awakening your purpose or whatever. You know, it's one of those books, and right now I'm in a section about the ego.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And it's like, okay, like we there's a lot of information on the ego, right? So to some extent, you're like, yeah, you know what? I got my ego and shit, and I try to check it or whatever. But it's actually, it's so intricate.
Is it like a Buddhist text similar to it?
I would say there's leanings toward that. So basically, this guy, I think his name is blanking out his name. Sorry. Mm-hmm. But anyways, so this is a man who has gone through many different schools of Eastern philosophies, mm-hmm. and even Christianity, and all these different ideas. Mm-hmm. And so eventually he kind of came to his own original thoughts on a lot of these things. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of, I would say, he's a spiritual teacher,
okay, of
today's world, where again he utilized technology and books to try to get it out. And he's a New York Times bestseller.
Oh, dang.
So it's like his ideas are out at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And as he's talking about this, you know, he's talking about the ego and how the ego can attach itself to many different things. Mm-hmm. And one of these things is complaining.
Oh, yeah.
And how one of the ego will attach itself to even the most minutest of things.
Yep.
And these things could be as easy as when I'm driving, and I know you're talking about being patient in traffic and shit, and I'm working on that. But like earlier, for example, I was hungry and I'm in fucking traffic and I'm pissed and I'm just like, fuck. So I even went to the extent of like talking shit to people, not to them, to where they knew about it, because that's like another level of disrespect. But in my head, I was like, man, this dumb motherfucker. So in that very book I had just read, how that is a form of egoism. Mm-hmm. Because now I'm kind of like, I'm breeding this negativity. Mm-hmm. And even though they don't know about it, I'm breeding it, but it's egoism. So even though I don't consider myself to be a man of great ego, in that very own moment, I was able to reflect upon what this man is teaching me. And it's that I'm still being controlled by this ego, which means that ultimately I'm not going down the right path. Mm-hmm. I'm self-destructing
in the sense where I'm getting further away from God's light, because the ego is the false sense, and our consciousness can be elevated tremendously, far more powerfully, and walk again in harmony when we're not being egoistic.
Yeah.
Because it's that ego that is actually closer to a lower life level.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
So adding to that, when I was younger, I got into Buddhism, and one of the main keys that I learned from it was detachment, and it's detachment of the ego, and that's one of the biggest challenges that a lot of people have, where it's very difficult to detach from the most minute things that you won't even think of.
Right.
You know, and just how you were saying, you know, like when you're in traffic, you have no control. You have to release control and detach yourself from being in that situation.
Right.
Where now that by allowing yourself to detach, it's one thing saying, it's another thing doing. That's where it becomes very difficult.
Exactly.
That's where it's very difficult. But once you train your mind and your soul and your ego to detach from it, you're creating more happiness. You're able to maintain that frequency that you had, other than just creating a destructive one. Because now you're speaking negativity out, and it's all bad vibes, literally. You know. So by detaching yourself from those feelings or those negative emotions, you're able to just kind of let it slide. I feel like that's another key thing. I'm not a religious person, but I did get into Buddhism at a very young age, and the teachings kind of just linger on.
Of course.
And a lot of it was detachment. Detach yourself from the things that you can't control. There's some things that won't make you happy, and that's what it is, you know. Sometimes even people. It's gonna happen. You're gonna have to detach yourself emotionally, physically, whatever it is, in order to keep your sanity to a certain extent, you know. So as far as what you're reading, that sounds really good. You know, I've been reading on a book myself too. It's about Buddhism, but it's kind of going off of, you know, the person reaching enlightenment, but at the same time holding back in order to help others reach that same type of enlightenment. It comes through teachings.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a very good book. I can't remember the name either, but I have it. It's like the most recent book that I got, and I got it because I feel like I need it again, you know? You need that calming sense of, you know, unity within yourself. Where it's like, you know, if you're okay within yourself, however you love yourself or appreciate yourself, you'll reflect it towards others.
Right.
You know? So, yeah, it sounds like a good book.
If
you're on the ego concept, that's a big, big part right there.
And the interesting thing about the ego is how difficult it actually comes down to separating yourself from it. Because currently, I have an identity. And everyone has an identity. But these identities are still rooted in egoism. So that's the one thing that got me really fucked up. Because I'm trying to be shit. But who are those people? Or what is that image? That's the shit that really, really, like, it almost, like when I reach like that, it almost kind of makes me want to do a 180.
Yeah.
To where I'm going. But at the same time, it's like, okay, a critical thinker, which again, the book is kind of against in a sense, because the book, man, it's fucking intense. So, you know, Descartes, is his name Descartes or Descartes? Remember that it's a old philosopher from the 1500s, the guy that said, I think therefore I am.
Oh, I can't remember the way it's
I'm
pronounced.
sorry, but his first name is René Descartes. Okay, I'm gonna just put it like that because that's how you spell it. So René Descartes, he's the guy who philosophized and said, I think, therefore I am. And so for hundreds of years, everyone said, it is my thought that makes me a human being. It is my thought which basically premises the whole idea of there being an existence. Until another philosopher came along by the name of Jean-Paul Sartre. And Jean-Paul Sartre, another brilliant genius philosopher of his time, but many years after him, actually ended up saying that, damn, this is where I butcher it.
It's all right. It's all
But
good.
essentially, and this is what I love about podcasts, right? We're just talking through things, and it doesn't mean that I'll be spot on
you're not gonna remember
or
that
absolutely
shit.
right.
Forget shit all the
I
time.
definitely don't have the memory of that extent. But so if one says and thinks, I think therefore I am, this guy said, no, it's. Damn, I will not be able to say it right, but essentially I'm gonna have to just go ahead and say it the way that I think I can tell
Yeah,
it.
the way you remember.
It's not so much thought. Damn, like I'm actually gonna have to let this one go, and
You're gonna have to come back to that.
I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna just let it go and let go of my pride on this one, and I'm not even gonna delete this because overall, like I do want to share and say like there's a lot of beautiful things out there, and next time we see each other, I'll actually be able to show you the book, and the lines are like literally right next to each other. In fact, even after the show, I'll show you the book because I have it upstairs, and we'll talk about it after. Sorry, guys. I'm not gonna be able
Put
to.
in the comments.
I'm not gonna be able to
there.
bless you with this gem, but essentially, guys, like, look, we have our thoughts, and we think that these thoughts are what makes us intelligent. You know, we think that these are the things that drive us, but in reality, it's not thinking that gets us closer to God. This is the point. This is the point that this book is trying to allude to, is that the less you think, the more you're just being. And it's that just being that allows you to neglect the one of my homies calls it the dancing monkey in the head. You know what I'm saying? You know, like when you try to meditate,
yeah,
dun 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 dun,
everything gets fucking loud out of a sudden.
Exactly. So that's our thinking. So what happens when we're able to stop that? Harmony.
It is harmony.
Pure. You're like just energy. And he gives me this example and he says, look, which I can already feel. I don't need the example. But he basically said, like, look, close your eyes and can you feel the energy in your hands? Can you feel the energy in your feet? That's our life source. That's the energy that we just are.
It's a beautiful feeling too when you like actually sit down and realize how much power your body has and your spirit has, and like legit put your hand out, close your eyes, meditate for a couple minutes and feel, you know, some kind of energy that you're emitting. You know, you're emitting energy. You just need to have that level of focus. It honestly, it took me a couple shroom trips to like really pinpoint it down. Where
shroomies, baby,
shroom gang. It's super. It's an experience, but it ties you closer to life. Like that was one of my challenges that you touched on, where I'm so in my head and I have constant thoughts and I'm trying to do things and this and that, but I never really had the time to sit down and live life. And let life pass me and then just be in the moment. Like even now I'm so just, you know, I gotta do this, do that. I hate wasting time. That's my biggest pet peeve. So I'm always just doing stuff. But in the moments where I'm able to just drop everything, or normally I give myself that time. I give myself that time to not do anything and just meditate. And within that like comes a level of just, you know, being free. Which I wouldn't do before, and I felt like I needed it through the whole madness of it all. So there is a sort of like level of bliss that comes behind it when you're able to just sit down, meditate, and just detach yourself from the day to day and feel one with yourself. Like this is you, this is your body. You're in this bitch, you know. So 100%, you know, you gotta just straight up live it, you know, be in the moment. That's
as much as a cliche as it is, it really is a boss ass move, liberationally, right? Like independently, like as an individual, as a human being. It's like when you're able to really like. This is why I love my podcast, bro, because there's a lot of moments in my podcast where we are living in the moment.
Yeah.
Because we're throwing ideas, right, and we're really trying to like build on it, right? And that means that you gotta pay attention to what you're saying, what I'm saying, and you gotta look and really see and say, well, where are we gonna go with this? So that requires you to really be present, you know, really be in the moment. And of course, there's always like our brains are still gonna think about other shit, and then our thoughts come that way anyways. But it's almost like a meditative or therapeutic experience.
It definitely is.
And there's just so much value to that.
Yeah.
You know, so much value.
And in spirituality, I feel altogether, because I feel like it touches into the whole spirituality thing, you know? Like, I mean, myself growing up, I feel like I didn't really have it. I didn't have a sense of, like, connection to the world, in a sense. So as I've grown older, now I understand. Also, another thing that has helped me is I feel very comfortable being uncomfortable. So for me, you know, being in a place where it might have someone else kind of feeling like, okay, maybe I don't feel safe or secure, or like, you know, maybe there's kind of just noises out around. Like, I've been able to kind of train my mind to relax in moments like that, where it's like, you know what, forget what's kind of the distractions that are going on in your mind right now. Just get down to like just meditating in your own mind. You know, relax yourself. Like, you're out of your element, but you're still okay. You know, your mind is still there. So I feel like spirituality definitely helped me like be in tune with that part of myself, where it's like, you know what, you're cool, you're straight. You know, you gotta remind yourself every now and then. You know, like don't let your emotions take over. You know, you might be a little upset, but breathe, calm down. You know, be very calm. And I guess spirituality itself could touch on a whole bunch of other aspects because it's such a broad term, but the way I perceive spirituality is just being closer to yourself. You know, allowing that connection with yourself, either being grounded or whatever it might be, like in a physical sense. Also, is just like, you know, being around someone. You know, is the vibe cool? Like, do you feel comfortable with this person? You know, so in that comes a level of kind of meditation when you're in your head. You know, like, are you spiritually, mentally, physically okay? Like, do you feel comfortable? You know, are you able to conceptualize what's going on and avoid what would normally be like whatever emotion or behavior or whatever you might do? Just let it slide and not let it take you over.
And I like how you put that, bro, about the power of spirituality. And how it has a calming effect on our male identified egos, right? Because we can say that through our identities as males, there are certain things where we present certain energies that are a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
And so that same calming effect of spirituality allows you to be a better man.
Definitely.
In the sense where, like, I think a better man is a man who is masculine to whatever extreme, but still can produce a common effect on a woman, a child, another man. And I want to grow into that, bro. I want to grow into that because there's been situations where I should have never popped off.
Yeah.
And if I was a better man, or the bigger man, I should say, I would have never popped off.
Exactly.
In fact, I would have probably turned around and been empathetic in the situation. I would have been compassionate. I would have been more understanding. And I would have either walked away or maybe even helped the person.
Definitely. There is a greater sense of empathy once you feel that level of comfort within yourself. Because however you feel with yourself, that's usually how you project yourself. You know? So if that sense of, you know, spirituality that you might have with yourself might be out of tune ever so slightly, that's how ever so slightly you're going to give it out, you know, knowingly, unknowingly, whatever it might be. In many cases, unknowingly, because you're just kind of going about your day to day. You don't think about it, you know. Most males, that's what it is, you know. I feel like very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of great women, and like in their own way, they've become my mentors, you know, in order to be more spiritual for myself and others, and then just being conscious of, you know, how you treat people, you know, just how you're kind of going off. Sometimes you might go off and you don't think about how they might feel about it after. You know, you're saying your point, you know, you're putting it all out there, but sometimes it makes people feel a certain way. And my benefit, as far as a person of business, you have to take that into consideration when you're approaching people, you know. I feel like that's been the most applicable part of it, where I'm at work, I'm meeting people, I'm constantly having meetings, but I'm able to take cues or kind of get an idea or even feel what that person's feeling and adapt to it and, you know, reach them at their level, you know?
Mm.
And if sometimes they'll get upset, and that's what it is, you know? And how you were saying, you know, as being the dominant male, it's not that you're being the alpha male, it's you're just the, you know, the more understanding male. So if someone's coming at you sideways, you got to be the more understanding person and acknowledge that maybe this person's not having the greatest day, something happened, or maybe you might have said something that didn't sit right with them. But you have to acknowledge all that like very quickly, you know? I feel like women tend to have that acknowledgement more than males, so it's something that I've observed within myself that I didn't have. So I try to acknowledge in the moment, you know? So it's, you know, it's like a retraining. You got to like unlearn and relearn new things.
Absolutely.
So yeah, like that level of connection with like oneself is key. Definitely key. Especially if you're someone who's going to be dealing with a lot of people, you know? I feel like for myself, as I started kind of getting comfortable reaching out to more people, I've been having fewer friends. Just because, you know, you start seeing where people are coming from. You start seeing what like their end goal is or whatever it might be, and it might not correlate with whatever you want it to be or whatever you're doing. So it's like, you know what, like love you, appreciate you. From there,
but that's where it is.
That's where it's at, you know.
And keeping a healthy space between each other's, like I said, it's a very healthy thing to do.
It's a very healthy thing to do. Yeah, it is. It's creating boundaries. You know, as you get older, as you value yourself more, you have to give yourself more boundaries. You know, how do you appreciate being in certain situations? How do you like being around others, or how you love others, how they love you? You know, I feel like also love is a big aspect too. You know, like it's just either against yourself with another person, the way you perceive life and you love life. You know, it's a key aspect that follows you on the day-to-day unconsciously. You know, either if it's picking up after yourself, you know, like it's one thing that made it very interesting to me. I was living in San Francisco and I was in Oakland, and I was in like in the hood in Oakland. You know, it's the hood. You see cars and bricks and shit, you know, and you would see a lot of trash. And one of my friends there, he kind of was going on like a little rant about it. Like, man, I don't know why it's so messy, this and that. And I'm kind of just, you know, going along with it, minding my business. And then I'm all like, maybe just they don't love themselves as much as they love the hood, you know? And in his mind, he perceived it a little bit different. When we saw it, he's all like, oh yeah, you know, people claim to love the hood, but they don't love it enough to keep it clean, you know? So it's one of those things where I just said it to say it, but it had a deeper meaning behind it where, you know, you gotta really love and appreciate these little aspects, you know, where if you claim to love the hood, claim to love yourself or whatever, treat it like you actually do love
Treat
it.
it like it's an extension of your own
An extension of your own self.
And I've been able to do that, bro, for many years. I was a child when I really made a big deal out of not littering myself. And I don't know, man. I don't know exactly where it stemmed from, but I think it did stem from that idea of like wanting to contribute to being cleaner.
Very so little, you know, it makes a big difference.
It does make a big difference, man. It does make a big difference. But if there's anywhere where people can reach you or contact you, you know, where can someone
for sure
reach or contact you?
So I got my Instagram. My personal is J Moctezuma, and my business one is Moctezuma and Sons. My link is on my personal one. So if you guys know me or want to reach out to me. So I do welding, fabrication, a lot of woodwork is what I'm getting into right now. Our specialties, fences and gates is what we do. So that's mainly most of my business. A lot of commercial, residential work. And so right now I'm in the works of trying to teach people how to weld. So I've been doing it for some time now. Obviously it's a business, you know, and I'm trying to get a collective and just, you know, teach like 5 people, You know, it might not be a lot, but it might help somebody. And within that, I want to kind of spit my game, you know, spit my knowledge as far as financial education. So I know I'm applying it for myself. I'm trying to apply it for my family, which a lot of you should as well. But, you know, it's the start of a community and building that connection and helping others find that. So, yeah, if anyone's interested, reach out to me. I might reach out to a lot more people that you have on your podcast because you got a lot of interesting people. So, yeah, I'm available, you know. I'm a very busy guy, but I make time when it's needed, so.
Beautiful.
That's how it is.
Thank you. And guys, this episode, by the way, is being sponsored by My Buck. Again,
yes.
This food, 7 principles for burros and back chasers. Thank you so much, Juan, for coming on, man. And we just spit a lot of shit.
It was a lot, bro. There's more in my mind that I wanted to say. We'll probably get to it some other time.
Right.
But yeah, we kind of just uncovered, like, we tripped at like the big cloud of it. You know, we got so much in our minds.
So much, and we'll have many more episodes as the years go by.
Yeah.
And as you accumulate more experience, more wealth, more knowledge, all of those things. And so will I. Until, you know, it's just beautiful to be able to sit together, you know, have this recorded, and maybe be on the internet for eternity.
Yeah, essentially.
You know,
yeah.
Our offspring and their offspring will be able to say and link back and say, look, like these things were being created. And thank you, man. Thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it, man.
For
and
sure.
as always, man, I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. And peace.